he said. "Don't worry, I put everything in the garage." 2 nights later, I opened the garage door and stared at empty shelves where my father's watch box and my mother's jewelry case used to sit. The air smelled like oil and dust. My brother-in-law's muddy boot prints walked straight to the emptiest spot. My name is Nolan Price. I'm 48 years old, and in my family, I'm the one who keeps the list. Serial numbers. Appraisal photos. The weird little pencil marks my dad made under the hinges of the old cedar chest. I thought lists protected things. I didn't know they could become a weapon until my brother-in-law sold our family treasures. If you've ever had someone touch what isn't theirs, hit subscribe so you don't miss how this ends. Like this video to push it to someone who needs a plan, and tell me in the comments the one item you would never let go without a fight. Alright, here's how I tracked every last piece, one receipt at a time. The week it started, grief had a schedule. My sister Claire and I were cleaning out Mom's house. She had passed 3 months earlier, soft and fast on a Sunday morning in her favorite chair, a blanket on her lap and a crossword on the table. Dad had been gone 2 years before that. In the corner of the living room, the cedar chest he carved when he was 22 held things that did not belong to any bank. Mom's wedding ring set, the locket with our baby photos, Dad's service medals, his old field watch, a first edition book Grandma smuggled through 3 moves, a silver tea set with tiny dents from little hands, and the quilt that lived at the foot of their bed every winter. Claire's husband Brett arrived with a pickup and a smile that reached no part of his eyes. He wore his, quote, helpful son-in-law voice, the one that sounds like a radio ad. "Unload my garage," I told him. "I'll bring the small valuables to my place for now." "Brother," he said, clapping my shoulder, "my garage is safer than Fort Knox. New camera, new deadbolt. I'll stage it neatly so you can go through everything without tripping over your feelings." "Don't stage anything," I said. "Just don't touch the chest." He grinned and pointed his chin at Claire like we were 2 boys in a treehouse. "Bossy, isn't he?" I ignored it. I followed the chest with my eyes until it was in the bed of his truck, tied down with 2 straps that looked thin. That night I slept holding a list. Not metaphorically. A real list. In the dim light of my room, the ink looked like tiny rails. On the first line, ring set, appraised 2018, photos on USB. On the second, Dad's watch, Omega Seamaster, serial 80XXXXX, last 2 digits covered in photo. There were 23 lines in all. 2 days later, the garage was empty. I got there at 6:07 p.m. The light through the side window made long gold bars across the concrete. Dust motes floated like slow confetti. On the wall, Brett had hung a pegboard with outlines of tools he didn't own. The cedar chest sat open and light, like a stage prop. The velvet ring tray was there, cut out around nothing. The old watch pillow was still indented. I crouched. The smell inside the chest was still Dad. Cedar, old book, a ghost of pipe tobacco. My stomach went cold, then hot, then cold again. I said the line out loud the way people say a phone number they don't want to forget. "Brett sold our things." Claire knocked on the doorframe and stepped in, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Where are the jewelry case and the watch?" I asked, keeping my voice flat because I knew she would listen to tone more than words. She stared into the chest and frowned like she had misread a sign. "He staged them for photos," she said, "for insurance." "Photos of empty velvet?" I asked. Claire's mouth opened and closed. Her face did a math problem and didn't like the answer. "I'll call him," she said, and pulled out her phone. He didn't pick up. She texted. The dots appeared and vanished. "Whose idea was it to move the chest to your house?" I asked. "His," she said. "He said your place was too small. He said he had the space and the camera and he said Fort Knox." I finished. "I remember." I stood, opened my backpack, and took out a notebook and a pen. I wrote 6:11 p.m. in the corner and empty chest. I took photos with timestamps. The empty tray, the watch pillow, the mark Dad had carved inside the lid, G+M 1979, the one he said looked like a brand on the side of a cow. Claire leaned against the workbench. "He wouldn't," she said, "half to me, half to the pegboard. He wouldn't." "I don't like shouting. I like math." "Let's not ask who he is," I said. "Let's find what he did." I drove home with the USB of appraisal photos, the paper appraisal folder, Mom's index cards, and Dad's ledger, the small black book where he wrote, in tiny caps, what came in and what went out, even on the days that looked like they broke him. At my kitchen table, I built my wall. Left pile, proof of ownership. Wills, letters from Mom mentioning specific items, insurance schedule for scheduled jewelry riders, photos of each piece on Mom's hand or Dad's wrist, the page in Dad's ledger where he wrote Omega, Service 2009. Right pile, identifiers, serial numbers, engravings, custom repairs. Mom's ring had a tiny nick on the underside of the band where it had caught on a metal basket once. You could see it in the 2018 appraisal photo if you knew where to look. Dad's watch had a service mark inside the case back that the appraiser photographed. A small triangle, and the initials, J.H. Middle pile, shop list, pawn shops within 20 miles, jewelry buyers, vintage watch dealers, auction houses, estate liquidators, Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace searches saved with alerts for Omega Seamaster 80XXXXX, vintage ring size 6 platinum, silver tea set monogram GM, military metals lot, first edition Steinbeck East of Eden. I wrote phone numbers next to each and the name of the manager where I knew them. Then I called Detective Harris at the local department and asked, when does a missing item become a police report? When a person with access and motive lies to you, he said, and when you have proof it was yours. You have proof? I have a binder, I said. Come in, he said. Bring it. I printed a simple incident report and wrote each item on a new line, with a small box next to it for check marks later. I did not want to think the word later. I wanted to see it on the page as a place I could reach. The first pawn shop I visited was the kind that smells like copper and carpet cleaner. The owner, Vic, is a man whose hair never moved, and whose eyes could count to 1,000. We've been nodding acquaintances for 10 years. I set a copy of the watch photo on the counter with the serial number covered except for the first 5 digits. I'm looking for something like this, I said. He looked down, then up. I don't buy watches with missing digits, he said. I buy watches I can resell. What about this one? I said, and slid the uncovered copy across. He didn't touch it. He didn't blink. Why is that photo on a piece of paper? Because the original is in my binder, I said, and because if you have it, you're going to want a copy of that binder page to show where it goes back. He stared at me like a dentist who hadn't decided if he needed a drill or not. He reached under the counter, pulled out a cheap notebook with columns, and flipped. Omega Seamaster, serial 80XXXXX, he read out loud, came in yesterday afternoon, sold this morning. My heart hit the bar and slid to the floor. To who? I asked, steady. He tapped the page with a fingernail. Policy says I log seller info, not buyer. Seller gave ID. Name, I said. Brett Mason, he said, and looked at me like he wanted to see the exact second the name hit my face. I did not give him the second. Copy of the slip, I said. Police only, he said. Detective Harris, I said. Case number coming. I slid him a card with the number I had just got at the station, blank otherwise. Vic didn't smile, but something in him let go of a small knot. He also brought a ring, he said. We didn't buy it. Too hot. Why too hot? I asked. Wrong story, he said. He said it was his grandmother's, then his aunt's, then he found it in a drawer. People who tell me 3 stories want me to pick the one I like. I don't like any of them. Do you keep photos of what you don't buy? I asked. Sometimes, he said, and handed me a color print from a cheap laser printer, a platinum ring set on a white paper towel, my mother's ring. You could see the nick. He squinted. If this is family, I'm sorry, he said, almost gentle. You know the rules. I hold what I have for the police if they come with the hold slip. After that, it moves. Print the ticket for the watch, I said. Please. He did. I took a photo of it next to my case number and texted it to Harris. 10 minutes later, Harris replied, "Got it. Pawn hold issued. Buyer hold request sent. Bring original serial confirmation." At the second shop, the woman behind the counter wore a sweater, the color of a school bus, and a wedding ring, the size of a grain of rice. She looked at the picture of the ring and then at my face. "We don't have it," she said. "But he tried here first." We said no. "He tried to sell metals, too. We don't do metals like that. Makes me feel like a thief, and I am not a thief." "Can you write that?" I asked. She blinked. "Write that I am not a thief?" "Write that he tried to sell," I said. "Date, time, what he said." She pulled a carbonless receipt pad from the drawer and wrote, "Brett Mason attempted to sell 4 military medals on date, described as his late father's. We declined. Also attempted to sell platinum ring set." She signed and wrote her store number. I took a picture and slid the original into a plastic sleeve. By the fourth shop, I had a system. I showed photos. I did not show all the numbers. I asked for refusal notes. I wrote times in the corner. I did not say my name unless they asked. That evening I sat with Claire on her porch. The wood under my boots felt softer than it should, like winter had leaked into it. She looked smaller in her chair. "He sold Dad's watch," I said, "for $2,000. "He said he never touched the chest," she whispered, staring at the neighbor's mailbox like it was going to tell her a secret. "He touched it," I said. "He sold it. He tried to sell the ring. He's going to try the metals, then the book, then the silver set, then the quilt if someone tells him quilts can be money. We have to move." "He said he was helping," she breathed. "Help looks like receipts and full shelves," I said. "That man left prints in dust." She put her forehead in her hands. "What do we do?" "We gather," I said. "We call the dealer where Dad serviced his watch and get them to send a letter confirming the serial. We print the 2018 appraisal photos with the nick marked. We pull Dad's ledger page. We ask Harris for a hold on anything unsold, and we get a detective's note to watch lists." "And Brett?" she asked, her voice thin. "Not yet," I said. "Not tonight." At midnight my phone buzzed. A new listing. Platinum vintage ring set size 6. Estate on a local marketplace group. The photo was a close-up. Someone had cleaned the ring too hard. It gleamed like a lie. You could still see the nick if you zoomed. I made a fake account and messaged, "Interested. Cash tomorrow." The seller replied fast. "Meet by the old mall, 2 p.m. The next morning, Detective Harris and I sat in an unmarked car that smelled like old coffee and new vinyl. The old mall parking lot was mostly ghost. At 2:08 p.m., a silver SUV pulled in crooked. Brett got out wearing sunglasses too big for his face and a grin that had no blood in it. "Got cash?" he said when I walked up. He didn't seem surprised. He seemed entertained. "Brother," he added, as if the word could turn the air warmer. "I have a detective," I said. Harris stepped out of the car and held up his badge like a note you pass in class that shuts everyone up. Brett's mouth went slack, then worked, then did a thing like he had swallowed hot tea. "Sir," Harris said, calm as a bench, "we have reason to believe you are selling property that doesn't belong to you." "Belongs to my wife's family," Brett said, palms out. "Same thing, community. We're all community." "Not how theft works," Harris said. "Can I see the ring?" Brett hesitated just long enough to tell the truth. He handed over a small, clear bag. The ring inside looked like a memory I didn't want. Harris turned it in the light and then looked at me. I nodded once. He took a photo, bagged it again, and handed it to me across the thin space between men who know the same thing and hate it. "We'll be in touch," he said to Brett, who tried to smile and found out his mouth had limits. Brett didn't run. He did something worse. He laughed like a boy. "You're going to call the cops on family," he said to me, "over junk your mom never wore." The last thing she held in the hospital was this ring, I said, because I wanted him to feel something heavier than asphalt. She turned it around and said it had kept her finger company since 1979. He stopped laughing. He looked at the ring and then at the space 4 inches to the left of my face. "I didn't know," he said. "You did," I said. Harris took statements on the hood of the car. He asked me to sign a receipt for the ring. He told Brett he was not to contact me or try to dispose of any other items pending investigation. Brett nodded like a man at a safety meeting who has a plan to leave early. By that evening, I had 3 more holds in place. One at a watch shop who had bought the Omega and still had it in the safe, waiting to ship. One at a consignment dealer who had taken the silver set on intake. One at a second-hand bookstore known for special finds who had accepted the Steinbeck for appraisal. I brought in the serial confirmation from Dad's watch service. The book had Grandma's name in blue fountain pen ink on the inside cover, with a date and a tiny doodle. The shopkeeper held it like a baby and handed it back with both hands when Harris called. "I am so sorry," she said, and I believed her. The metals were harder. Brett had taken them to a collectibles shop, owned by a man who looks like a middle school math teacher who decided to live inside a metal detector. He had bought 2 metals and refused 2 because they were too common. I showed him photos of Dad wearing the ones he had sold, one on his parade coat, one pinned by Grandma's trembling fingers. "Hold them," I said. "I will," he said, "if you sign a statement that you'll come back with the police and an ID. I like old things to go home." "We'll be back," I said. At home, I taped a copy of the item list to the wall and started ticking boxes with a green pen. Ring, recovered, watch, hold, silver, hold, book, hold. Metals, 2 of 4 located, locket, missing, quilt, missing. The green tick next to the ring looked like a small flag. Claire came over with a bag of groceries and 2 different kinds of face. One you wear to go to work, one you wear when work comes to your kitchen. "He says you ambushed him," she said softly. "He says you tricked him." "Did I trick him into taking the chest?" I asked. She shook her head so hard the air moved. "He did wrong," she whispered, like the wall might tell him. I put a mug in her hand. "We are not talking about him for 10 minutes, I said. "We are writing down what is ours." We sat at the table and played the game where you close your eyes and remember what things feel like. The locket had a sharp edge on the back from a repair. The quilt had 1 square with fabric that didn't match because Mom ran out of the pattern and asked the neighbor for a piece of an old dress. The tea set had a dent on the second smallest cup where my cousin dropped it at Thanksgiving the year we were all 16 and trying to be interesting. Claire spoke, and I wrote. When she ran out of words, I pushed the pen toward her, and she wrote too. When we were done, there were smudges on the paper where our fingers had been. At 11 p.m., my social media alert pinged. Vintage locket, baby photos, estate with a blurry photo that could have been anything. The seller's other listings included 2 neon beer signs and a dirt bike. The location tag was the next town. The message name was JON76. I wrote to him, "Is the hinge tight? Any initials?" He replied with a photo of the back. The edge nick showed up in the flash glare like a white star. My chest hurt in a new way, not a punch, a pull. "Cash now," he wrote. "Meeting tonight?" "Tomorrow morning," I wrote. "Coffee shop on Main." I emailed Harris. He said, "We'll be there. Don't go inside until we arrive." I didn't sleep. I ironed a shirt I didn't need. Ironed. I checked the list twice. I put the small jewelry bag from the ring on the table and looked at the way the plastic made the diamond look softer. Morning. Coffee shop. John was 24 and tall and wore a hoodie with the logo cut off like he didn't want to remember where he got it. He put the locket on the table like a dare. I looked at it, nodded, and said, "Thank you," even though I wanted to hold trembling like a thing that might break. Harris approached like he was asking for a menu. He held up his badge, asked John where he got it. "Guy in a garage," John said. "Said it was his mom's. I thought it was sweet." "Name?" Harris asked. "Brett," he said. I exhaled and realized I hadn't breathed since the door opened. John signed a statement. Harris took a photo with the case number. He handed the locket to me, and I dropped it. Finally, into the bag with the ring. The sound it made was so small and so important that the woman at the next table looked up and then looked down and pretended not to cry. 2 days later, we had located the quilt on a local auction site that described it as vintage handmade estate, unknown maker. The photo showed the odd square. I sent the image to my neighbor from 20 years ago. She wrote back a single line. That's the dress. We called the auction house with Harris on the line. They pulled the lot. The owner apologizes, are all the same, and all honest in their own way. You want to believe people, they said. You do, and then someone like you calls. What about the garage? You don't steal just the easy things if you think you're smarter than the people who loved them. Brett had started a side hustle, estate pickups. He had a website with photos of other people's furniture and words like heritage and discreet. He had turned our garage into inventory. He had posted a photo of the cedar chest with a caption, "Coming soon." I printed the screenshot. I printed the About Me page, where he called himself a trusted family liaison. I printed his new business card. I printed his LLC filing. I wrote misrepresentation in the margin and underlined it twice. Harris called from his desk. "We're at a fork," he said. "We have enough for misdemeanor theft on the items we can tie to a sale. We can push higher if we show total value and intent. For the rest, still at his place, you need a civil route to get a writ for recovery. Replevin. We can't break his door. A judge can." "Replevin," I said, tasting the word like it might cut my tongue. "Your lawyer can file it," Harris said. "Bring the binder. Judges like neat." I called Ruth Nolan, yes, the same Ruth who saved my wedding in another life, and she said, "I like family math." We met at a table that smelled like lemon cleaner and printer ink. I laid out the file like a meal. Proof of ownership, identifiers, police incident, pawn slips, refusal statements, screenshots, the LLC printout, the fake estate site. She read everything, and then asked me to do what good lawyers ask. Now tell me the story without the paper. I told her about Dad's ledger, Mom's ring, the quilt square that didn't match, Claire's 2 faces, Brett's Fort Knox voice, and the watch pillow dent like a missing tooth. When I ran out of sentences, she pushed her legal pad across the table. On it, she had written, "Ownership clear, wills/photos/appraisals engraving. Possession transferred, Brett moved chest. Conversion, sold watch/ring attempt/metals/book. Value over threshold. Grand larceny? State line. Replevin writ, immediate possession. Freeze, temporary restraining order on disposal. Sheriff, execution plan. Bond, if required. We file civil for replevin and a temporary restraining order," she said. "We notify him and his LLC to freeze movement. We schedule a hearing fast. With this record, I like our chances for an order of possession. When we get it, we coordinate with the sheriff to go into his garage and get your things. Meanwhile, the DA will look at the police file. It's comprehensive." "Judges like neat," I said. "They do," she smiled. We filed 2 days later. The court stamped our petition and set a hearing for Thursday morning. The restraining order to freeze disposal went out by email and certified mail to Brett's home and to Mason Heritage, LLC. The order used his new title against him. Defendant shall not sell, transfer, conceal, or otherwise dispose of any items described on Exhibit A, including but not limited to jewelry, watches, metals, silverware, quilts, books, and related personal property. It listed each item with a photo thumbnail. It looked like a museum exhibit slipped into a court file. Brett called Claire that night and shouted loud enough that I could hear through her phone when she answered mine on speaker. "You dragged me into court," he said. "Over junk? Over a ring that doesn't even fit you?" "Over Mom's life on her hand," Claire said, voice steady in a way I recognized for the first time. "Over Dad's wrist. Over Grandma's book. Over the blanket she sewed when we had the flu. Over the way you lied while you smiled." He called me names he had been saving. Some were about manhood. Some were about money. None were about truth. "You can talk to my lawyer," I said, and hung up. The hearing room was small and smelled like 1,000 paperclips. The judge wore glasses that made him look like someone's uncle. He asked Ruth 2 questions. He asked Brett's lawyer 1, "Does your client dispute that he sold the watch and attempted to sell the ring?" Brett's lawyer said, "We dispute intent." The judge signed the order for immediate possession with a fountain pen. The ink made a tiny pool at the dot of the I. He said, "Counsel, coordinate with the sheriff." Brett's mouth opened like a window in a storm. The sheriff's civil unit runs like a factory that also listens. Deputy Flores shook my hand and looked at the photos. "We like lists," he said. "We like when people know exactly what they're looking for. It makes the day shorter." He scheduled the execution for Friday at 10 a.m. He asked if I wanted a locksmith present. I did. He told me to bring 2 large bins, a rolling cart, a camera, and someone I trusted to check things off. I brought Claire. She wore a sweatshirt and no jewelry and a look I hadn't seen since we were teenagers, and she had dug a splinter out of my palm with a sterilized needle because she didn't want me to say I couldn't. Thursday night, I didn't sleep. I laid out the list on the dining table like a map. I taped the watch photo next to my car keys. I put Dad's ledger in my jacket pocket because I wanted him in the room when the door opened. At 9:52 a.m., we pulled up to Brett's house. Deputy Flores was already there, talking to a second deputy and a locksmith, with a case that looked like it belonged in a movie. Brett's garage door was down. His curtains were closed, his truck was not in the driveway. Flores explained the rules. We show the order, we ask nicely, we give him 5 minutes to comply. After that, we open the door. At 10:01, they knocked. Brett opened the front door, saw me, and laughed that boy laugh, but this time it had rust on it. "You brought the law," he said. "The law brought itself," I said. Flores handed him the order, and the restraining order. "We're here to execute a court order for possession," he said. "Do you understand?" Brett's eyes flicked over the page and stuck on the first photo. He stared at the tiny image of the ring like it might become bigger if he thought about it correctly. He said nothing. "Keys," Flores said. Brett hesitated long enough to prove a point. Flores nodded to the locksmith. The locksmith rolled his case to the garage door and knelt. He moved like a man who had done this exact thing every Tuesday for 15 years. 2 clicks, a tiny hiss, the door rolled up. Inside were boxes. Inside were shelves. Inside were things that didn't belong in any place but ours. The quilt lay folded on a plastic bin, the corner with the odd squares sticking out like a hand. The silver set sat in a crate with a label polish. The medals were pinned to a piece of black foam like bugs. The locket's chain hung on a nail with a price tag attached in Brett's small, neat writing, $125. Claire put a hand on my arm. I didn't know if it was to stop me or to keep herself from moving too fast. Flores turned to us. "Let's do this clean," he said. "You call the pieces. She checks them. I photograph them. He watches. You don't talk to him. If he talks to you, you don't answer. When we're done, we lock the door." I nodded. I started with the quilt. "Family quilt, odd square," I said, and my voice didn't crack, though my chest did. Claire checked the list, put a green check, and laid the quilt in the first bin. Flores took a photo. I moved to the silver. Tea set, monogram GM, dent on second smallest cup. Check, photo, into the bin. I moved to the medals. 2 ribbons, 2 pins, 1 with scratch left of the eagle. Check, photo. Into a small box we had padded with a towel from Mom's kitchen. The book was on a shelf, spine out, dust jacket clean, where it shouldn't have been. I opened the cover and read Grandma's name. Claire put her hand over mine. I didn't cry. I felt like someone had opened a window inside my chest and the cold was good. We worked down the shelf like we had rehearsed. In a way, we had. The list was the rehearsal. The orders were the tickets. The deputies were the ushers. Brett stood with his arms folded. He said, "You forgot who helped you move when your back went out. He said, you always hated me because I understood your sister. He said, you could have asked. He said, you are making a scene. He said, "This is embarrassing." He said, "You can't take the toolbox. That's mine." I did not look at him. I focused on small truths you can hold. The way the nick on the ring looks like a crescent moon. The way the old watch pillow kept its dent. The way silver smells like pennies if you put your nose near it. The way quilt stitches are not perfect when the person who made it was your mother, and perfection was never the point. Halfway through, Flores held up a hand. "Pause," he said. "What's in that bin under the tarp?" Brett said, "Nothing." Flores nodded to the other deputy. They pulled back the tarp. Inside were 5 smaller boxes, each with a label made from Brett's printer. Coins, photos, frames, misc to sort. "Open," Flores said. Brett didn't move. The deputy did. He cut the tape with a small knife and folded back the flaps. Inside the coins box were 5 small coin flips, each with Dad's handwriting pressed into the paper with a dull pencil. Morgan, 1889. Buffalo, Mercury. $50 1942. Canadian dime from cousin. The photos box had old albums I'd forgotten existed. Dad in a tie too wide. Mom holding me in a striped blanket. Claire with a birthday cake that leaned like a tired building. The frames box had 3 photos from the hallway, wrapped in newspaper. The to sort box had the locket's old chain and a handful of tiny things that mean nothing to a buyer and everything to a son. Claire put 2 hands over her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, then steadied. "Check," she said, voice small, and put green ticks next to coins, albums, frames, misc. Flores took a wide shot, and then a close-up. The small whine of the camera motor sounded like a machine that had decided which side it was on. When we reached the back wall, there was a stack of empty boxes. In the bottom one, flattened, was the velvet jewelry case insert Brett had taken the ring from. He had written on it in blue pen, "Sold." Next to it, in the same hand on a square of cardboard, was a list of prices. Ring 3K, shoot for 3,500. Watch 2K, set 400 to 600. Book 200. Locket 125 metals, depends. He had underlined shoot and then drawn a smiley face with no eyes. Ruth took a photo when we sent it to her later. She wrote back, "Thank you for preserving his handwriting. It's a thing you learn when you spend time in rooms with SEALs. People teach on accident." At the end, the bins were full. The list was green. The photographs were a stack. Deputy Flores signed the inventory and handed me a copy. He handed Brett a copy, too. Then he looked at him like a man who wants to say something that will be remembered but knows he shouldn't. He said nothing. He shut the garage door. The locksmith turned a screw. The sound the bolt made when it set felt like a seal on a jar of jam your grandmother made. We rolled the bins to the truck. Claire put the quilt on her lap in the passenger seat and held it like a child. I carried the small box with the medals on top like a tray. The locket and ring were in my shirt pocket, over my heart, which is a sentence people write and do not mean I mean it. Harris called as we pulled away. "DA is moving forward," he said. "We'll charge theft over the threshold based on total value and the documented sales." The judge liked your order. "Keep the originals safe. We'll need them." "I will," I said. At home, I laid the quilt over the back of the couch. I put the silver set in the cabinet. I slid the book into the shelf. Tomorrow we'll always know. I put the ring box and the locket on the table and sat with them until the light changed. It wasn't over. There were receipts to file, hearings to sit through, a sister to help stand up, and a man who would try 3 more tricks before the door clicked for good. But for the first time since the boot prints dried on my garage floor, I felt the air move in a way that didn't smell like loss. I opened Dad's ledger and wrote a line under the last entry he ever made. It wasn't a number. It was a sentence. We took it back. Harris called again on Monday. "DA wants a sit-down," he said. "Bring your binder. Bring the simple story. We'll do the rest." The district attorney's office smelled like copier heat and coffee that does its job. Assistant DA Patel shook my hand like she'd been waiting for a clean file all day. She didn't waste a smile. She didn't waste a minute. She flipped through the tabs. Ownership, Identifiers, pawn slips, refusal notes, screenshots, the replevin order, the sheriff's inventory, then set the binder down and looked at me, not through me. "Here's what I see," she said. "He took, he sold, he tried to sell, and he lied." Value is over our felony threshold when we add the watch, the ring, the medals, the silver, the book, and the rest, especially with proof of sale and attempt. He's going to say it was community property. It wasn't. These were your mother's property, by will, by appraisal, by possession, and then your estate's property, not his. He'll say you set him up, Minali. He set up a table and he put his hand on it. We'll charge theft and deceptive practices. He'll get a lawyer. He'll talk about family. The judge will talk about facts. She made a short list on legal paper with a pencil that made a soft scratch. Felony theft, attempted theft, false statements, restitution. She tapped the pencil twice. We'll push for a no-contact condition with the items and your sister. He'll want a deal. We tie any deal to full restitution, and we keep civil separate so you can finish your own case. "Will the watch come home now?" I asked. "We'll file the hold to convert to release with proof," she said. "You already brought the service letter. Good. The watch shop will sign it over to you through evidence. The medals, too. We'll deliver a property release. Don't sell anything yet. I know you won't, but I have to say it." "I won't," I said. "These things don't have price tags." She smiled with half her mouth. "Good. Courts like people who say that." Claire was waiting outside the building. She pressed her palms together the way she used to do before piano recitals. "What now?" she asked. "Now we let the machine do the heavy lifting," I said. "And we keep our paper neat." That week, the watch came home in an evidence bag with a sticker on it like a passport stamp. I cut the tape. I held the watch in my hand, and it felt like the first cold water of summer, pure and shocking and worth waiting for. The second hand swept like time, hadn't been rude to it. I turned it over. The service triangles were there, exactly where the appraiser had photographed them. I laid it in the watch box next to Dad's old cufflinks and closed the lid like a prayer. The medals came back next. Harris brought them himself. He set the small box on my table with care a man learns by doing the job long enough. "I don't always get to deliver good news," he said. "Today I do." Claire pinned one on her shirt for a second and stood up straight without being told. Then she took it off and put it in the box, and we both stood there and breathed like it mattered more than it looked. Brett, meanwhile, found his mouth. He called Claire from 3 numbers until she blocked them. He texted me 3 long messages at 2 a.m. full of words like betrayal and family and overreaction. He never once wrote the word sorry. He posted on his estate liaison site that he was under attack from jealous relatives. He posted a photo of a random quilt and called it inspired. He didn't know quilts have tells. He didn't know the internet never forgets. Ruth took screenshots and put them in a tab called mouth. She doesn't waste nouns. The civil case moved like water in a levee channel, fast, controlled, loud if you stood close. Brett's answer came in thin and late. He denied, and then said misunderstanding 6 times in one paragraph, like repetition could turn ink into fog. Ruth filed conversion, civil theft, under our state statute, fraudulent misrepresentation for the estate business, and requested punitive damages. She also filed for attorney's fees under the civil theft statute and a permanent injunction forbidding him from holding himself out as our liaison or handling any of our property. "Punitive?" I asked. "For the smiley face," she said, sliding me the photo of the cardboard with prices and the eyeless smile. "Juries hate smug. Judges do too." He wrote down the plan. He underlined, "shoot." He is not a bumbling fool. He is deliberate. Punitive is for deliberate. The DA filed charges the same morning Ruth filed the civil amendments. Brett's new criminal lawyer sent a note about resolving this as a family matter. Patel answered with a document number and 2 words, "see evidence." At the arraignment, Brett stood between two suits he couldn't afford. He pleaded not guilty. The judge set a no-contact order. He looked at Brett over his glasses and said, "Do not touch anything that isn't yours. If you're unsure what is yours, assume the answer is nothing." Courtrooms have their own humor. This line got a cough laugh from the back row. It didn't get a smile from me. I was too busy keeping my spine straight. A week later, Patel called. "He wants to plead down," she said. "If he pays full restitution and agrees to probation and counseling, we give him 1 felony and suspend time. He violates, he sits." "What's full?" I asked. "Every penny he made on the watch, the book, anything he sold," she said. "Plus the pawn hold fees, plus any damage, plus your costs for rekeying your mother's house and moving the chest under orders, plus a donation to the veterans. Post of your father's unit. He pushed the medals. He can polish the name he tried to cheapen." "Do it," I said, "but I want a written apology to Claire and me, not because I want to frame it, because I want a record that he understands what he did." "Added," she said, "I'll send language." Ruth liked the shape but added a catch. "We don't release civil claims until the check clears and his apology is filed with the court. And we don't limit punitive. Criminal belongs to the state. Civil belongs to you." Brett signed the criminal deal with a hand that suddenly remembered how to shake. The restitution number made him blink. The veterans post part made him clench his jaw like a child who doesn't want to say thank you. The judge took the plea, set probation, and read the order slowly enough that even people who don't read well could follow. No contact, no interference, no estate business handling our property, counseling for entitlement thinking, the judge's phrase, not mine, and a review hearing in 6 months. The courtroom had quiet edges. People watched without thinking they were watching. That's what justice looks like most days. Quiet edges. Civil went to a bench trial because Ruth asked for it and the other side didn't object. "We don't need 12 people," she said. "We need 1 person with a pen." The judge was the same man with the fountain pen. He looked at our binder and said, "I remember this file." Ruth walked him through conversion, the taking and selling of property that isn't yours, with simple sentences and photos instead of adjectives. She played the parking lot meeting video from Harris's body cam where Brett handed over the ring like a coin to a toll booth. She put the cardboard price list on the document projector, and the eyeless smiley face looked back at us like the last thing you see before you decide to be better. Brett's lawyer stood and did a dance about family fights and confusion, and a man just trying to help. Then Ruth asked Brett 3 questions on cross that were the only questions he needed to hear out loud. "Whose watch was it?" "Not mine." "Who sold it?" "I did." "Whose ring is this?" "Not mine." "Who brought it to the parking lot?" "I did." Ruth nodded like she was picking up change off a table. No further questions. The judge ruled that afternoon. He entered judgment for conversion and civil theft, awarded us the value of anything not recovered, 1 common medal and 2 small silver forks, which we later found in a toolbox anyway, awarded attorney's fees, and, this is the part that made the weight in my chest shift, added punitive damages equal to the value of the watch sale, because the smirking notes suggest malice rather than mistake. He granted the permanent injunction. He signed the order with that pen again, and I thought maybe the pen likes our side of the room. Brett didn't have the money. Of course he didn't. Men like Brett keep money for toys and keep debts for family. Ruth filed the writ of execution. Deputy Flores called like it was a date we'd set months in advance. "Friday," he said. "Bring your list. We're making space in his garage." We showed up with the same bins, the same rolling cart. Different mission. The writ gave the sheriff the right to levy property to satisfy the judgment. Flores explained the rules again. "We can't take his bed," he said. "We can take the tools he uses to pretend he has a job. We can take inventory. We can take that sign that says Heritage. We can take the truck if it's titled to him, or the LLC, and not fully encumbered. We can take the photography lights he uses to make other people's things look like they were his. Brett stood in the driveway with his arms crossed so hard his fingers went white. "You're ruining me," he said. "I didn't write your prices," I said. The deputies moved with the quiet efficiency of people who have learned to make a mess neat. They tagged shelves, boxed inventory, unplugged lights, lifted tripods, rolled out a fake antique hutch he used as a backdrop. They rolled a toolbox with the serial-numbered drawers, and the drawer that still had our silver forks in it. Flores taped a levy sticker on the hutch and another on the softbox light that said Heritage Photo Company in peeling letters. He put a sticker on the banner that said Estate Liaison Discreet, because sometimes the law performs a tiny piece of theater to make a point. Then he walked to the truck. "Keys," he said. Brett tried a speech. "That's my livelihood." Flores nodded. It was a getaway car for stolen things. "If it's paid off, or mostly paid, it's going with us." "It's in the LLC," Brett said, like the letters could stop hands. Flores held up the writ. "The LLC is the name on the complaint, too. Keys." Brett handed them over. Claire watched from the sidewalk with her hands in her sweatshirt pocket and her jaw set in a way I had not seen since we were kids. And she told a group of 8th graders to leave me alone or learn about their own teeth. The tow truck driver hooked the line with the kind of care you bring to a job that gets filmed by someone no matter what. He winched. The truck rolled. Brett stared at the ground. A small crowd collected at the end of the block, because a tow truck is a magnet for people who like to measure their own luck. "Next step is auction," Flores said to me. "We'll publish notice. If he comes up with the money before then, the levied items go back. If not, they go to the highest bidder. You'll get paid from the proceeds until the judgment and fees are covered." "I don't want his stuff," I said. "You want your math," Flores said. "You'll get your math." He was right. Notices went out. 2 weeks later, at the county auction yard, a handful of sellers bought Brett's fake heritage. The softboxes went to a real photographer, who shook my hand like he wished me peace. The hutch went to a couple who wanted to repaint it and put it in a room with taste. The toolbox went to a young mechanic who counted cash twice. The heritage sign went for $5 to a man who collects old letters and irony. The truck went to a dealer who looked at me and said, "You want to keep the keys as a souvenir?" I shook my head. I don't keep trophies that smell like other people's bad plans. The county cut a check. Ruth applied it to the judgment, interest, and fees. We were still short a bit. Brett entered into a payment plan the court could enforce. His first payment was late. The second was on time. The third was short. The clerk sent a notice. He got the message. The fourth and fifth were full. Men like Brett aren't consistent. Courts are. That's why courts win. What about the apology? He wrote it because the criminal judge made it a condition. It wasn't eloquent. It was plain. He typed, "I took and sold property that wasn't mine. I tried to sell more. I lied. I am sorry." He signed his full name. The judge filed it in the criminal case. I didn't frame it. I slid it into the binder under resolution, next to the restitution receipts and the sheriff's levy photographs. The binder doesn't care about feelings, it cares about endings. Claire filed for separation. I didn't push, I didn't advise. I helped her pack a suitcase and took the estate liaison sign down from the garage door myself with a screwdriver that belonged to my father. She moved into the guest room at my place for 2 months and relearned the sounds of a house without apology. She started drawing again at the kitchen table where we counted pawn slips. She drew Dad's watch from memory, and then drew it again with the nick on the ring's band like a tiny moon. The second drawing moved me in a place I don't have words for. We decided what to do with the medals, not to keep them shut in a box, to loan them to the veterans, Hall with a small plaque, on loan from the family of Dad's name. Please touch with your eyes and your heart. Claire cried when the commander shook her hand and said he had polished the case himself last night because dust makes people feel forgotten. We visited once a month. We left flowers the way you leave a receipt, quietly, clearly, and in the right place. I went back to the garage where this started. I installed a better lock. I installed a camera. I painted a single shelf. and labeled it Dad's, even though Dad doesn't need a shelf anymore. I put the cedar chest under it. I closed the lid and ran my hand over G+M 1979 and felt the tiny grooves like a map of a small town where you always know which store sells nails and which one sells candy. I wrote a new inventory for the chest and printed 2 copies. One went in the chest, one went in the binder. If a man tries to take what's yours, make it easy for the good people to put it back. It didn't all come back. The common metal never turned up. One small fork didn't either. That's how theft works. It takes the corners of things, not just the center. So we made new corners. We took the estate liaison banner Brett had printed and cut it into cleaning rags. We used one to polish the silver. We used one to dust the bookcase. It shed gold letters like glitter until the last long line of the word liaison disappeared into the trash, and I laughed from somewhere below my ribs. Months later, I ran into Vic at the pawn counter. He looked at me and clipped his words carefully. "You got your things," he said. "That's not common around here." "I had photos," I said, "and a detective, and a deputy who likes lists." He nodded once, the way men who mind their business say respect without clapping it into a shape. "Keep the binder," he said. "And don't tell people this shop is sentimental." "I won't," I said. I sat on my porch that evening with the watch ticking on the table next to a glass of water. The street hummed. A kid rode past on a bike too small for him and didn't fall. The elm across the street decided spring had permission. The house breathed like it forgave itself. Inside, the binder lived on the shelf I had built. It looked fat and calm. I opened it to the last page and added a sentence under. We took it back. We emptied the right garage. Then I wrote one more line for anyone who needs it the way I needed Dad's ledger. If someone sells your family's past, make the future expensive for them. Do it with paper. Do it with patience. Do it with people who like neat. If somebody ever tries to tell you that it's only stuff, they have never opened a cedar chest that smells like your father's hands. It's not stuff. It's an archive. It's a map. It's the proof that your name belongs where it is. I put the watch on and set the time. I slid the locket chain through my fingers and saw a baby's face, and a mother's hand, and a Sunday morning when the light was right. I folded the quilt over the back of the couch and smoothed the odd square with my palm. It didn't match. That's the point. We keep the odd square. We carry it forward. We don't let anyone price it like a lamp. If you've had a Brett in your life, you don't have to tear your throat out to shout. You can walk into a pawn shop with a photo and a case number and say, "Hold, please." You can sit in a courtroom with your spine straight and listen to a judge make ink behave. You can watch a tow truck take the truck that carried your things away and not feel dirty, because it's not vengeance. It's maintenance. We didn't steal. We didn't scream. We didn't beg. We kept receipts. We asked calmly. We asked the right people. We made the day expensive for the man who made it hard. Then we went home and made soup. If this story gave you a plan, hit subscribe so it reaches the next person who needs one. Like the video to tell the algorithm that paper beats lies, and drop a comment with the one item you would fight to get back. Your dad's watch, your mom's ring, the quilt with the odd square, so someone scrolling at 2 a.m. sees it and starts their list. We took it back. You can too. 3 months later, a certified letter showed up at my mother's old house with the wrong name on it, Mason Heritage, LLC. The post office forwarded it to me because my name was still on the mailbox. The outside said lien sale notice. The inside said a storage unit, Unit 412, would be sold next Friday for non-payment. The listed contents were vague. Household goods, tools, boxes. I sent a photo to Ruth. She called in 1 minute. "This is his other garage," she said. "We move now." She filed a motion as my judgment creditor's attorney and attached our civil judgment. She asked the court to let the sheriff levy and open the unit before the sale. The judge signed the order the same day. Deputy Flores met us at the storage place with a locksmith and a clipboard. "You again," he said, half a smile. "Let's make it neat." The manager walked us down a long hallway that smelled like dust and rubber wheels. Unit 412 had a red lock like a warning light. The locksmith popped it in 10 seconds. The door rolled up. I thought I was ready. I wasn't. Wall to wall, shelves, bins, and a fake photo corner with a backdrop. Every bin had a printed label, not misc, not junk, names. Riley, silver, Osborne, metals. M. gain, ring/estate, price, letters. Photograph before we touch, Flores said, and took a wide shot and then a close one of the labels. I pulled the price letters bin down and opened it. Inside were bundles of my mother's letters tied with string, the ones she wrote my father when he was overseas. I had never seen them. Brett had removed them from a box of papers while helping us sort months ago, then hid them here like stock. My hands shook. I sat on the concrete and read the first line I saw. I put the watch on the nightstand so your hands are close while you sleep far away. I had to stop. I handed the bundle to Claire. She pressed them to her chest and cried without noise. Flores moved through the unit like a librarian in a storm. He called out names from labels so I could copy them. Riley, Osborne, Ramirez, M. Guyen, P. Patel. Some bins had tags from shops. Some had post-it notes with prices in Brett's neat print. In the corner were 2 more cardboard price lists with his smiley face, the same eyeless smirk. Flores photographed those too. "This is a ring," he said. "He's not just a petty thief. He's running a business." Ruth arrived with a box of plastic evidence, sleeves, and a plan. "We'll divide," she said. "Items clearly yours. Letters get logged to you by levied release. Items with other names get logged, and we call them. We turn a lien sale into a return day." Deputies tagged everything. The storage manager printed a roster of phone numbers from contracts he kept quote, just in case. He'd thought he was being helpful to a small business. His face told me he now felt sick. "We called the first number on the Osborne metals bin," a woman answered. Ruth said, "Ma'am, this is about your late husband's metals." Silence. Then a gasp. "I thought they were gone," she said. "He said he would clean them and bring them back." "He won't," Ruth said. "We will." We set a date. Saturday. The sheriff's annex. Flores called extra deputies. The storage manager volunteered a truck. Ava, my wedding planner friend who'd become my logistics friend, brought the one thing no one thinks to bring to a return day: tissues. People came. Not a crowd. Families. Small numbers. Big feelings. A man in a veteran's cap took a box labeled Osborne Metals, opened it, and touched the ribbon with one finger the way you check if a pie is done. He put his hand on my shoulder and didn't speak. Words weren't enough. A young woman named Mai Yan came with her mother. We handed her a small bag labeled M. Nguyen ring/estate. She opened it and took out a platinum ring with a tiny chip at the edge. She looked at her mother. Her mother nodded and reached for her hand. That nod said 100 things. "Yes, finally, I knew. I'm sorry. We can rest." A tired couple retrieved a bin labeled Riley, silver. They laughed when they saw the dents because dents can be proof. "Our kids did that," the father said, proud. Local news showed up because good deputies tell good stories. Flores stood off camera and let the families talk. No one said viral. People said home. They said ours. They said thank you the old way, looking in your eyes. The DA added charges: possession of stolen property, organized theft, multiple counts. The storage unit ledger and the labeled bins made the case easy to draw for a jury. Not a one-off, not confusion, a system. Brett's criminal lawyer stopped using the word family in his emails. He used the word exposure. Patel used the word custody. At sentencing, the judge listened to 3 short statements: an elderly widow who got back a ring the size of a tear, Mai's mother, who said only, "I can sleep now," and me. I didn't bring the binder. I brought Dad's ledger and one of Mom's letters. I read one line, "Your hands are close while you sleep far away." Then I said, "Ma'am, the court showed us that when a man touches what is not his, the law can put hands on what is his tools, his truck, his time." The judge looked at Brett for a long time. "You wrote the word, heritage, on a banner," he said. "Then you took people's heritage and priced it like you were selling folding chairs. The court cannot teach you love, but it can teach you limits." He pronounced a sentence that had weight. 18 months, suspended down but with 90 days in county to serve now. 5 years, probation, full restitution to all named victims, ban on any estate or resale work, community service at the Veterans Hall, cleaning cases, not touching contents, and a no-contact order for Claire and me that would make him think twice before dialing. Brett's smile, the one he used when he thought charm could turn hard into soft, died on his face. He turned toward Claire like old habits might work. She looked past him and raised her chin at me the way she did when she was 12, and dared boys to take one more step. After court, we drove straight to the Veterans Hall with a brown paper bag. Inside were 2 things. First, those gold heritage banner strips we had turned into rags. Second, a new display ribbon we bought for Dad's empty medal slot, the one medal that never came back. The commander clipped the ribbon in and nodded. "An empty space with a label," he said, "is better than a lie." We gave the rags to the janitor. He laughed and said, "Gold picks up dust like a dream." He wiped down the glass case with the word heritage catching the light in pieces. I stood there and watched my father's name stay still, while my own breath fogged and cleared. That night, at home, I opened the price letters bin and read one a day for a week. The last one ended with a line my mother must have written in the same kitchen where I was sitting. "If this ever gets lost, I trust you to find it, because that's who you are." I folded the letter and slid it into Dad's ledger. 2 old books, one about money, one about love, both true. I pulled the binder down and added the final page. I wrote 3 short lines. We emptied the wrong garage. Then we emptied the real one. The rest of his storage is time. I closed the binder and felt it heavy and calm in my hands. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, the house felt clean, not shiny. Clean, the way a story is clean when it ends where it should. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe and join Taste of Revenge family, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on one of the boxes on the right. Thank you for watching to the end.